Hello everyone, I'm Cannistra. Thank you so much for joining me on my weekly movie news show on 91.1 WZBT Gettysburg, and thank you so much for making me part of your day. Alright, so with that, all that out of the way, let's move on to the first topic of the day. And the first topic of the day is that we have an official title for the new SpongeBob SquarePants movie, and it is now officially being called SpongeBob SquarePants Movie. It's a Wonderful Sponge, and will be released on July 17, 2020. Paramount also released some additional details about the film, more specifically that Hans Zimmer will be composing the score for the film, and the film will also be an origin story for SpongeBob and the rest of the Bikini Bottom gang. There's also a quote that Paramount Pictures released earlier this week that I just want to read. For the first time ever, we're going to get the origin of how little SpongeBob met the rest of the Bikini Bottom gang at summer camp. The film's opening will take place at Camp Coral when all of our favorite characters will meet for the first time. A couple of interesting things here. One of the most obvious ones is that this is definitely going to be an origin story for SpongeBob and the rest of the Bikini Bottom gang. And obviously, people are going to see some similarities to a very classic film, It's a Wonderful Life. And I'll just give a quick rundown for those of you who don't know what It's a Wonderful Life is actually about. So it's pretty much this guy who's down on his luck. He's not feeling so good about his life, and then he gets visited by a spirit, and the spirit takes him through to different family members, close friends, and then he gets to see how his family and friends' life would have turned out if he had never been in their lives, and then he gets to know the meaning of life, stuff like that. So obviously they're doing this in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. It'll definitely be a little different. It's a kids animated movie and it's SpongeBob, so it's really not going to be all that deep. But I do think it's interesting. So I'm just going to go for a flashback to my childhood for a minute here and kind of theorize about what's going to happen in this movie. So for those of you who don't know, there's this character in SpongeBob. His name is the Flying Dutchman. He's kind of a spirit. I think it would be kind of funny and interesting if they brought the Flying Dutchman into this and kind of take SpongeBob through. He gets to see Patrick and Sandy and Mr. Krabs and Squidward, and he gets to see how miserable all their lives would have been if he had never worked at the Krusty Krab and stuff like that. And there is precedent for that within the SpongeBob show. I know it's SpongeBob. Nothing's canon. I'm putting way too much thought into this, but I am having fun theorizing here for a second. So there's this episode in SpongeBob where the Flying Dutchman kind of takes SpongeBob and Squidward and Patrick into all these different dimensions. So there is precedent for it in the TV show, so I'll be curious to see where they go with that. And I will be curious to see what this origin story is like for SpongeBob, because we never really had gotten an origin story for SpongeBob in the past. So I think it could be interesting. Look, again, I keep saying this over and over again, but I just want to make this point. It's a SpongeBob SquarePants movie. I'm not expecting it to get nominated for any awards, but I am excited for this because I enjoyed the show as a kid. I think the movies are actually not all that bad. So I am looking forward to it. So, back to my point. I am curious to see the origin story of SpongeBob and how he met everybody, because we've never really gotten that. We just kind of assumed SpongeBob and Patrick were friends for life. But how did they meet? So I think it's interesting that they're going to explore that. The one thing I really hope that they don't do is like show them as like really young and have the really annoying voices, because they did that in a few episodes for the in the TV show, and even as a kid, I found that incredibly frustrating when they had like the little mini SpongeBob and they had this really annoying high pitched voice. I really doubt they're going to do that. And Paramount and Nickelodeon know how to make a feature length film and how to make it appeal to a wider audience. But I just hope they don't go with the annoying voices, because honestly, I could not take an hour and a half long movie about that. And then we have an official release date. Let me double check when the official release date is. I know it's in 2020. One second. Okay, so July 17th, 2020 is the official release date. So pretty far away. We still have a lot of time to wait for this movie to come out. But I am looking forward to it. It should be fun. Again, not expecting anything great. I'm just expecting to go see a fun animated movie. That brings me back to my childhood a little bit. Anyways, that's all my thoughts about this new SpongeBob movie. So with all that out of the way, let's move on to the next official topic of the day. And the next topic is that George Lucas visits the Mandalorian set. So, at surface value, the story's really not much, but I keep seeing a lot of reports online and a lot of outlets saying George Lucas visits the set of The Mandalorian. Is he officially involved again? I just wanted to take this opportunity to officially say no. George Lucas is not involved in The Mandalorian or any Star Wars projects in the near future. He is a publicity tool, more or less, now for Star Wars. We see set pictures of him. I'm pretty sure we saw a set picture of him visiting the Rogue One set, the Han Solo set, the Last Jedi set. He's a publicity figure. He's the creator of Star Wars. Pretty much goes in and gives his thumbs up. It's like, yeah, like what you guys are doing so far. Keep it up. That's really about it. He's definitely not getting involved in Star Wars now or at any time in the near future. Let George Lucas just relax as mansion in California and enjoy his $4 billion that he got from selling Lucasfilm to Disney. I don't think he wants to get involved. He has been very vocal about his dislike for the current Star Wars movies. He did not like the Force Awakens. I don't know how he felt about The Last Jedi actually, but it's pretty well documented. He didn't like The Force Awakens. So he's not overly thrilled with what Disney has been doing with the property. So I don't think he really particularly wants to get involved. And also, I don't think Disney wants him to get involved. Look, it's no secret that a majority of Star Wars fans out there do not like the prequels at all. I am one of those people. I think they're total trash. At least the first two. I mildly enjoy episode 3. But for the most part, me and a lot of other fans are not big prequel supporters. I will always, as one critic that I watch online says, I will always worship at the altar of George Lucas. He created this incredible franchise that will be forever ingrained in pop culture. But I think it's safe to say that he kind of lost his footing with the prequels, and he should not necessarily be allowed to come back and direct again. It's also been well documented now what his plans were for episodes 7, 8, and 9. He wanted to get into the idea of the midichlorians and go into like this microbiotic universe, which is just an awful idea. I have to be 100% honest with you. That's really dumb, especially considering how much everyone. If there's one thing that most people hate about the prequels, even a lot of people who like the prequels don't like this, it's the idea of midichlorians. You kind of like you have the certain amount of bacteria within your body, and that determines your strength of connection to the Force. Not a great idea. And I think that just proved that George Lucas should not be further involved with Star Wars. I think that's just plain and simple. He's not being involved with Star Wars anymore, and he shouldn't be involved with Star Wars. So now you might ask the question, well, why was he on set that day? Why did he go to visit the Mandalorian? Because it's George Lucas's property. Are you honestly going to tell me that if George Lucas decides that he wants to go visit Disney Studios, they're not going to let him in? It's George Lucas. He created this whole thing. If anyone has a free pass anywhere in Hollywood, it's George Lucas. They're going to let him in. He probably just wanted to see what's up, say hi to everyone, say hi to Jon Favreau, see what they're doing, because he did create the idea of Mandalorians. He's probably curious to see what they're doing. And that's honestly all it was. And also, on another note, it was apparently a birthday surprise for Jon Favreau. Jon Favreau wanted George Lucas to stop by and see the set, and George Lucas decided to stop by on his birthday, which I think is kind of neat and cool. So overall, George Lucas is not getting involved with Star Wars. He was being a publicity figure. He wanted to see what was up because he created this whole thing and he wants to see where Disney's taking it. I honestly think that's it and really nothing more to it. Okay, so the next topic of the day that I want to talk about is actually about Bohemian Rhapsody. And more specifically is that, okay, I've seen some very mixed reviews online for this movie. There's one critic that I really like. His name's Christian Harloff. I watched his review. He loved the movie, and a lot of the critics I watched honestly really enjoyed this movie. But I was really surprised because I went to Rotten Tomatoes, and it has about 49% right now. I was like, that's very odd. So I read through some of the critic reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So I just wanted to read a couple that I found interesting. Then I'll go into more details about it in a second, about some overlying themes I keep seeing within these reviews. But let me just read these first. So the first review is from IndieWire. And it says, the critical failure of Bohemian Rhapsody is that 134 minutes after the lights go down, the members of Queen just seem like four blokes who've been processed through the rusty machines of a Hollywood biopic. The next one comes from USA Today saying, Bohemian is just a conventional rock flick, one all too ordinary for a man in a band that exemplifies the extraordinary. And then the last one I have here comes from the New York Post, and this one says, what we ultimately wanted from Bohemian Rhapsody was not a carbon-copied concert, but behind closed doors insights into a deeply private, complicated, internationally beloved superstar. There's a couple of really big overlying themes in all these reviews I just wanted to talk about for a second. And I'll be honest, I kind of find these reviews unfair to the film Bohemian Rhapsody. Look, all film is subjective, and a critic is allowed to think whatever they want about the movie. I'm not trying to take away that these critics obviously did not like the movie. They did not give it a positive review. But I will admit that some of this criticism I think is unfounded and unfair. I think that these critics went in having these preset expectations of what this movie was going to be and what it was going to be about, and Bohemian Rhapsody did not meet those expectations, therefore the critics gave it a bad review, which is ludicrous to me for a couple of reasons. One of which, in the fandom of Star Wars and Marvel, we always go around saying we can't have these set expectations going in to see a Marvel or Star Wars movie because we can't get our expectations up, because what they do could be significantly better than what we want them to do. The most recent example is The Last Jedi. Look, I did not want them to do with what they did with Luke Skywalker, most recently in The Last Jedi. I wanted to go see Luke Skywalker light up a lightsaber and take out some stormtroopers or Knights of Ren. That did not happen, and I was okay with what they did with Luke, because we saw what Disney did with Luke, and we thought, oh, that was actually kind of cool. Not what I would have expected, but cool. And we have to be careful with speculation too, because like we're seeing with Bohemian Rhapsody, sometimes if you get your hopes up too high, and what happens to the movie isn't what you actually wanted to happen, that's not, you're going to give the movie a bad review. And I feel like critics here are being hypocritical, because the critics are saying, oh, this movie didn't do what I wanted it to do, bad review. I don't think that's fair. The common theme throughout all these reviews is that it didn't go dark, it didn't go deep enough into the background of Freddie Mercury, which I think is an unfair criticism. From what I've heard, I have not seen the movie yet. The movie comes out next week. I'm very excited for it, and I will be watching it. But from what I've heard, that this is a pretty solid biopic. Does it go into the dark backgrounds of Freddie Mercury? No, it doesn't. But the movie accomplishes the job it set out to do, and I think that's a good thing. Why does this movie have to go into the deep, dark background of Freddie Mercury and Queen? It didn't need to do that. All people wanted was a good biopic about Queen. Look, could they have done a darker movie looking at the life of Freddie Mercury following he was a married man and he came out as gay and he eventually got AIDS and then he eventually died? Could they have done something like that where they follow his life and the darker closed door stuff? They could have. But that's not what the filmmakers wanted to do. They wanted to do a biopic about Queen. They wanted to do a feel-good movie. And that's what they did, and from what I've heard, that's what they accomplished. So I'm really unsure as to why some of these critics are now saying, oh, well, it's not dark enough, so it's a bad movie. Not every movie needs to be dark. I'm sorry, guys, but every movie that's nominated for an Oscar doesn't need to be about somebody dying of some horrible illness or some really dark, depressing movie. It doesn't need to be. Part of the fun of the movies is going to the theater and having fun and enjoying yourself. And from what I've heard, that's what it sounds like Bohemian Rhapsody is. And from these critics I read that don't like it, that's what they have, these pre-established expectations of what they want the movie to be, and they didn't follow it. So now they're giving it a bad review, which I think is really unfair and hypocritical. Like I said before, you have pundits pretty much saying all the time, don't get your expectations too high on thinking this one thing is going to happen or this one story arc is going to happen in the movie, because it might not happen. Because if we get our expectations too high, it will ruin the movie for us. And that's exactly what some of the critics did here. They had their expectations built up that this was going to be some really dramatic film. And it wasn't. It was a fun, feel-good movie about Queen. And it didn't meet those expectations of those critics, and they gave it a bad review. And I can't help but wonder, like I just said, that the critics having expectations and the movie not meeting those expectations is definitely a large percentage of why critics did not like the movie. I don't want to take away from them not liking the movie. They have their own reasons, and it's all subjective. That's just my thoughts on it. But I also do have to wonder, are critics being a little harsher on this movie because of the whole Bryan Singer situation? For those of you who don't know, Bryan Singer has had some sexual harassment allegations against him. They have not been proven in the court of law. He has not been found guilty, but there have been several people that have come forward and made allegations against him. I can't help but wonder, are critics being slightly harsher on this movie because of that? Are critics being harsher because they don't want to support a movie that Bryan Singer did because of these sexual harassment allegations? I'll say right now, they have every right to feel that way. They 100% do. I am one of those people that likes to separate the art from the artist. And I don't think it's fair that critics are possibly, I don't have any proof about this, this is just my pure speculation, and it's thoroughly possible they don't feel this way at all. But I just have this feeling that critics might be feeling a little harsher about this movie because of Bryan Singer's history. And that's perfectly fair of them to do. I personally don't agree with that. I think that we should separate the art from the artist, and that's that. And again, I completely understand anyone who feels differently about that. People who feel like, no, he did these horrible things, we have proof, I don't want to support the movie. I 100% get that. The way I look at it is separate the art from the artist. And also, there's hundreds of people that work on movies. It's not just Bryan Singer. There's craft services, there's actors, there's actresses, there's assistant directors, there's stunt coordinators, there's choreographers, there's hundreds of jobs, hundreds of people working on this movie. You're not going to go see it or give it a slightly more negative review because one person could potentially have done this horrible thing. I don't personally agree with people giving him Bohemian Rhapsody a bad review because of that, but they do definitely have every right to do it. I'm not going to fight anybody who feels that way, but I personally think it's unfair to give Bohemian Rhapsody a slightly harsher review because Bryan Singer might or might not have done something in his past to other people in his life. That's why I'm going to get into that for now. I don't want to go into a full-on discussion about this, but that's how I feel about it. Now, I know that I pretty much have been talking about the negative reviews that have been coming on Bohemian Rhapsody, but I do want to talk about one positive thing that has stayed consistent throughout pretty much every review that I've read and seen, and that is Rami Malek, who plays Freddie Mercury, gives a fantastic performance as Freddie Mercury. I've been seeing everywhere he's going to get nominated for an Oscar most likely. I've been seeing everywhere that it's the best performance of the year and that he's a lock for a Best Actor nomination at the very least, and that people think he's going to win. So, look, even if you think that you don't want to see this movie because of Bryan Singer, go see this movie for Rami Malek. Like I said, I have not personally seen the movie, so I have no way of saying if this movie is good or bad, if it's worth you watching, how good Rami Malek is from my perspective, because I have not seen it yet. But from what I've heard, go check out this movie, if not just for Rami Malek, because I think you'll get your money's worth from the ticket just to see this guy's performance. And again, from what I've heard, he's going to be nominated for Best Actor at the Academy Awards this year. So, let's move on to the next topic of the day, and it is a leaked picture of Pepper Potts as Rescue in Avengers Infinity War. Now, I'm not going to put up this picture anywhere on my social media or anything because Marvel has apparently been taking it down a lot, but I will talk about it because Marvel can't do anything about me talking about it. I'm not going to put the picture up, like I said. I think that this is a fake picture. I really do, for a couple of reasons. One of which is it's Gwyneth Paltrow taking a selfie in her rescue armor. I really don't believe that Gwyneth Paltrow is dumb enough to post a picture of herself as Rescue on the Avengers Infinity War set and send it to people, or Avengers 4 set, sorry. I just don't think that she's dumb enough to do that. I really don't. She's been in this MCU just as long as Robert Downey Jr. has. She knows the drill. She knows not to share anything on social media. She's fully versed in all the Marvel cinematic culture and stuff like that. She knows full well. Don't post anything online. Just don't. So that's why. And if you look at the picture, you can find it online. Just search Pepper Potts as Rescue in Google and click on images. You'll find it really easily. The picture looks a little fake, to be honest with you. It's like a selfie of Pepper, and you just see her head, and then below it is the rescue armor. I just refuse to believe that anybody at Marvel will let that picture get out anywhere. And also, I really don't think that this movie is going to have a heavy emphasis on Pepper. I really don't. I think this movie is going to be about Thor, Tony, Cap, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Bruce, the original 6 Avengers. That's what this movie is going to focus on. Will Pepper be in the movie? Absolutely. Do I think they're going to give her a whole story arc, which involves giving her her own Iron Man suit? I really don't believe so. But let's take a minute and talk about the possibility that this is a real picture and she is actually suiting up as Rescue in the movie, because it makes sense narratively. Look, we've seen throughout the MCU Tony wants to protect Pepper at all costs. He does everything to protect her. He has those lines of Iron Man 3, like, the only thing I want to protect is you. So let's follow that logic for a second. Would it make sense that Tony would build a suit for Pepper to protect her? Absolutely. I think that's a very likely scenario of something that would happen. Tony would build a suit for Pepper in case of an emergency. Look, we know Pepper doesn't necessarily like Tony suiting up as Iron Man all the time, so I think like a likely scenario would be like, look, if there's ever a crisis, if you're ever in trouble, or if something ever happens to me, like the attack in New York, and I'm not available to help you, just like press this button on your phone, and like in Avengers Infinity War, when the Iron Spider suit goes to Peter, this Iron Man suit will come to you and you can protect yourself. That's a very likely thing that Tony would do. It just is. Tony wants to protect Pepper, the only person really that he loves. So it makes sense that he'd do it. But from another perspective, I don't see Pepper wanting to put on an Iron Man suit. We know she does not like Tony being Iron Man. She even says in Avengers 4 or Avengers Infinity War, he has the arc reactor type thing in his chest. She's like, yeah, if we were really fine, you wouldn't have done that. And Tony's like, no, it's just in case that something ever happens, in case there's a monster in the closet. So we know Pepper doesn't like Tony being Iron Man all that much. So why would she then go ahead and put on her own Iron Man suit? Look, there's a possibility that she changes her mind, like, you know, spoiler alert for Avengers Infinity War if you haven't seen it yet, but we do know that there's a snap, half the universe dies, so maybe Pepper's like, alright, I need to help out Tony, make me a suit, or I'll use the suit that you prepared for me, and help you guys out. That's a possibility, but I just don't see Pepper wanting to put on a suit. We know she doesn't want to get involved with the Avengers. She thinks it's reckless and dangerous, so I really don't see that happening. So, just to conclude the story, I really don't think that Pepper's going to be suiting up as a rescue in Avengers 4. But narratively, it does make sense. Tony would probably have a suit created for Pepper somewhere stored in the Avengers base just in case something were to ever happen to him. But I just think it's unlikely because we know throughout the MCU, Pepper does not necessarily approve of what Tony does as Iron Man, so why would she then be kind of hypocritical and then go and suit up by herself as rescue? But yeah, again, there's a possibility that remains that Pepper decides that, well, half the universe just died, I need to help out Tony, he's doing the right thing now. So anyways, that wraps up that topic of the day. So we got two more topics for discussion today, and the next topic is the Force killed Luke Skywalker, according to Mark Hamill. So there's an official quote that Mark Hamill put out on Twitter. I'm just going to read it. He said, "The Force killed Luke. You have to acknowledge the irony in his fate. Almost like an addict that kicked his addict cold turkey, remained clean for decades, only to reuse just once and then tragically overdoses." A couple of things here. I think that Mark Hamill is a little wrong on this topic. Look, he's Luke Skywalker. I love Mark Hamill. But he does have a habit of posting some stuff on Twitter about Star Wars that is not factually correct. And I think this is one of those examples. I do not believe that the Force killed Luke Skywalker. I believe half of that is true. So we saw so spoiler alert, I guess it's too late already, but spoiler alert if you haven't seen Star Wars The Last Jedi, but it's been out for a while. If you haven't seen it yet, you have no interest in seeing it. So anyways, Luke Skywalker sacrifices himself at the end of The Last Jedi, and he kind of absorbs into the Force. He just disappears. And I'll just describe how I saw that ending, or when I originally saw it, and now how apparently Mark Hamill sees that ending. There's a couple of things. So I saw that ending as Luke accepted his fate. He used up all the power that he had. He just physically exhausted himself. He couldn't keep going. And the Force took him in. He went to another dimension, if you will. I don't know how to describe it, but he went where Yoda went. He went where Obi-Wan went. He sacrificed himself. He used up so much power projecting himself across the galaxy to help spark that rebellion again. And by using up all that power, he died. He sacrificed himself, and he absorbed into the Force. Now, apparently how Mark Hamill sees this ending is that Luke Skywalker apparently was an addict of the Force. He had been using it for so long, but then after Kylo Ren took over his school, he he cut himself off from the Force. He went to that island, and he just cut himself off from the Force. He didn't use it again. But then that he went back to it that one time, and that using the Force that one time, projecting himself across the galaxy was just too much for him to handle, and that's what killed him. It's an interesting theory. I just honestly don't buy into it, but I still stick to my original theory about what happened. Luke used so much of his power, used so much of the Force within him, that he just couldn't handle it anymore, and his body just gave away eventually, and the Force accepted him into the universe. Now, let's talk about this for a second, about Luke Skywalker dying, because I still believe that there's a 5% chance that Luke Skywalker isn't dead. Look, I know that Mark Hamill just pretty much came out and said Luke Skywalker's dead. There's a comic book panel in the Star Wars graphic novel comics that says Luke Skywalker is dead. I still believe that there's a 5% chance that Luke Skywalker is dead. I really do. Look, so let me explain the panel for a second that is in the graphic novel. So there's a graphic novelization, if you will, of Star Wars The Last Jedi, and there's a panel that says, of Luke Skywalker saying it ends just as it began, staring at the twin suns, and then he vanishes, pretty much implying Luke knows he's going to die, and he dies right there. I honestly do believe that Luke could possibly still be alive. Look, the most likely scenario is that Luke is dead. Mark Hamill shot The Last Jedi. I really don't think he would have put out this tweet if he knew that Luke was alive. He wouldn't have said anything. But we never heard anybody in the movie specifically say Luke is dead. Remember, Rey said Luke is gone. Maybe he just teleported himself across the galaxy to another place because he knew he couldn't stay on that island. Kylo Ren knew where Luke was on that island, and Luke could not stay there. That's a likely scenario, or a possible scenario, but not likely, but a possible scenario. And he's somewhere in the galaxy, and Rey, Leia, Poe, and Finn are going to go find Luke. Granted, there's like a 5% chance possibility of that. Like I said, Mark Hamill said that Luke is dead. People at Disney have said Luke is dead. There's a comic book panel that said Luke is dead. But the reason I believe he's still alive is because of the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher. And unfortunately, Disney, having to kill off Harrison Ford's character, Han Solo, because Harrison Ford did not necessarily want to come back for another Star Wars movie. And that really leaves them with no original trilogy characters. Look, there's still Chewie, there's still 3PO, there's still R2, there's still a bunch of original trilogy characters, but none of the big three anymore. And I really think Disney wanted to stick with having at least one of the big three characters from the original Star Wars trilogy in these new Star Wars movies. So how do they go about that? They don't kill Luke. I hate to say it. Look, Luke's sacrifice was great in The Last Jedi. I think it was handled very well. I really like what they did with the character. But on the other hand, I really do want at least one main original trilogy character in the movies, and unfortunately I don't see another way out other than having to kind of retcon a little bit Luke's sacrifice. Because we know Leia's going to be in this movie. They're going to use recycled footage from other Star Wars movies like The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, so we know this will be Leia's final movie. Harrison Ford's not going to be in it, so what do? I think you've got to bring Luke back. I really do. If you don't bring him back, then I think you at least have to have a heavy presence of Luke as a Force Ghost. But even then, how much of a heavy presence can he have? Because we don't know what Force Ghosts can do. There's the one line of Obi-Wan in the Empire Strikes Back when he says, "If you go confront Vader, I can non-intervene." So what can Force Ghosts do? Are there rules set that Force Ghosts can't get involved in fights in the real world? We don't know. So if Force Ghosts have rules and limits, does that mean that that Luke can't be in the movie all that much? It's going to be interesting. And I do hope that they bring Luke back. I won't be completely disappointed if Disney decides to keep him dead, just brings him back as a Force Ghost. But like I said, I would like to have one original character back for every new Star Wars Disney movie. I just think it keeps it consistent. It brings the fans back. Like, okay, look, I love Poe, Rey, and Finn, and I will see any Star Wars movie that they were in. But you can't honestly tell. Disney can't expect Star Wars movies to make as much money as they have been without some of the original characters. They just can't. You can't expect the Episode 9, or Episode 9 will do very well because Luke will definitely be in as a Force Ghost, if not back as a real person. Leia's going to be in it. So episode 9 will be fine, but episode 10, you don't have Leia anymore. You don't have Han. You won't have Luke as a real person, most likely. And I think Disney's going to be quite foolish if they think, oh, people will be fine, it's Star Wars, everything will be fine, people want to see Star Wars. I hate to break it to you, they don't. Look, I love Star Wars. I will see anything that is Star Wars related in the theater, but no questions asked. People like my parents, they're not going to get excited to see Star Wars Episode 10 starring Rey and Poe and Finn. And I guarantee you, I'll get asked a question. So is Luke in this one? No, Mom. Is Han in this one? No, Mom. Han died. What about Leia? No. Oh, then I'm not seeing this one. I just think that's going to happen. I think Disney's foolish to think that people of my parents' generation and older are going to go want to see a Star Wars movie when their original cast members are not in it, and it's just these new ones. People from my generation will, most likely. I'm just guessing. But I really doubt people from my parents' generation are going to really care that much about it, which is why I think that there's about a 5% possibility that Luke comes back as a real person in Episode 9. Just keep that one cast member consistent. That's all you gotta do. Just have one lead character from the original trilogy in there, and I think you're set. Anyways, guys, that's all my thoughts on that. So for the last topic of the day, I actually needed to pull this up quickly, is that Wonder Woman, shocker, is actually moving release dates. So, one second, guys. Let me just pull this up. So, as we've known, DC has been in kind of mayhem and trouble over the past few months. The Flash was delayed yet again, and now, like less than a week later, we have word that Wonder Woman is now delayed. It just adding to this whole DC drama, and honestly, I'm just getting a little tired of it at this point. I think that they just need to get a grip and just figure out what they want to do. Because honestly, I'm a little unsure as to why they keep moving release dates. Why can't they just get it set? It's really not that hard. Come up with the plan, execute the plan, and you're good. DC is rudderless at this point, and I honestly believe that. I've been trying to defend DC for months at this point on various shows. I just can't understand why DC can't figure out a plan for their cinematic universe and execute that plan well and effectively and efficiently. I've honestly I've lost all faith in DC at this point, and delaying Wonder Woman a year is not good. So for those of you who don't know, I am actually from DC, and I decided one day I'm going to go to the Wonder Woman set and take a look. This movie's been shot. I kept up with it as it was shooting in DC. It's been shot since June. Or maybe not June, maybe around September. Finished shooting around September, how about that? You're honestly going to tell me they need almost 2 years of post-production to get this movie out on time? I don't believe that. I just don't. DC clearly is going to be reshooting a massive amount of this movie. There's no doubt in my mind about it. And I'm really unclear as to why. Did they see like a rough cut of this movie? Did they see the dailies from as they were shooting and be like, this isn't going to work. Reshoot this. Which would not shock me at this point, because DC has done that before, multiple times. Look, you have a great director in Patty Jenkins behind the camera in this. You have a somewhat decent actress in Gal Gadot. I'm not all that strong on Gal Gadot. I know a lot of people are. I think she's serviceable. She's not all that great, though, as Wonder Woman. But all of that is canceled out with having Patty Jenkins behind the camera, because she's a great director. She's been nominated for Oscars. She got one of her actresses in one of the movies that she did. I believe the movie was called Monster. Can't remember what the actress's name was, but she got that actress the Academy Award. Patty Jenkins knows what she's doing. So why is Warner Brothers meddling again and again and again? Like I said before last week with the Flash movie, I believe that Warner Brothers, and this is what they should be doing, but I just don't think it's working. They should have a set idea of what they want their movies to be. They need a Kevin Feige there piling the ship saying, all right, this filmmaker, go do what you want. But you have to execute this, this, and this in Flash. I just have a feeling that the studio, Warner Brothers, is meddling a little bit too much in the scripting process of Flash. and they're having a really difficult time getting various filmmakers attached to the project. And I think the same thing is happening with Wonder Woman now. I think that, look, I have no proof of this whatsoever, but I have to believe that Patty Jenkins is doing a great job as directing Wonder Woman. I'm sure she's doing great, but then Warner Brothers saw some things, and they were like, no, we don't like that. No, all right, Patty, you're done. We're reshooting half of this movie. That's the only thing I can think of. Look, you don't delay a movie a year, and you're not reshooting anything. It just doesn't happen. I hate to break it to you guys, but post-production does not take a year. Or post-production usually takes a year. If you're doing something in post-production that takes 2 years, you better have a massive exception to that rule, like Aquaman, Avatar, that has very heavy CGI. Look, Wonder Woman's going to have CGI, but no more than an Avengers. No more than an Aquaman. Or, sorry, no more than a Iron Man. No more than Wonder Woman 1. There's not that much post-production that needs to be done. There's just not. So like I said again, and I'll wrap this topic up for today, is that DC probably saw some stuff in the dailies, or like a very rough cut of Wonder Woman 2, decided, no, we don't like that, you're going to reshoot it. So now they got to go back to the scripting phase, rewrite some of the script, go back and reshoot some of it, and spend a ton more money. I can't just help but think that this is going to be like a Disney Solo situation. They're going to reshoot half of this movie, have a budget of $3 million, and it's not going to perform as well. Because let's face it, Warner Brothers DC Films has been on a downward trajectory ever since Batman vs. Superman. Justice League only made $600 million. I really don't think you can expect Wonder Woman to make much more than that when Wonder Woman was in Justice League and featured pretty heavily. And I think audiences have just lost faith in the DC universe. And like I keep saying, just reboot, please, DC, reboot. It's time. It's really time for DC to reboot. I think that they need to realize now that what they're doing right now is not working, and that take a couple-year break and reboot. I'd honestly be okay if they kept some of the things that are working in the DCU in their reboot universe. Look, I usually think that if you reboot the whole thing, all new actors, stuff like that. But I'd honestly be okay if you kept Wonder Woman in the reboot universe. I'd be okay if you kept Ezra Miller in the reboot universe. Unfortunately, I don't think you could keep Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill because they are having issues with Warner Brothers, to say the least. They're most likely going to be gone soon. Or if not gone soon, then they're already gone. So not only do you have Wonder Woman being delayed, probably costing a lot more money to the studio, and it probably not performing well, you have two of your most profitable and recognizable characters of all time, and their actors are gone. And they literally have like almost no plans to reboot the cinematic universe with, or to continue the cinematic universe with Batman and Superman, which I think is a mistake. Anyways, guys, this is just a whole mess with DC right now, and I just honestly think that they're rudderless. They need a Kevin Feige at this point. They need someone to steer the ship, say, all right, do this in this movie, but you have free range with whatever else. Just establish a cinematic universe. Don't be reactionary. Don't keep reshooting all your movies. Stop having so much behind-the-scenes drama. Let the filmmakers do what they want, but also maintain some control. I just think with Wonder Woman 2 being delayed a year, they're meddling too much. Look, there's a thorough possibility that Wonder Woman 2, the rough cut that they saw, is turning out horribly. I just think that's an unlikely scenario with what we've heard and what we've seen from Warner Brothers so far. So anyways, guys, that concludes my show for today. Thank you so much for listening. Do me a favor, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're listening to this on the WZBT radio. And if you are watching this live on YouTube, please just subscribe down below. Leave some comments about what you think. And just a reminder, my YouTube channel is Ethan Cannistra, Ethan, Cannistra. I post videos throughout the week, usually Mondays and Wednesdays, because that's when I don't have class. And then this show, of course, is always recorded and added to my YouTube channel later. So until next time, goodbye.